Sir? It needs time to chill out. Okay? And during this time also, now, the nutrients in the land, what would they call it now? The things that are, I'm sorry? Will be restored. And we force the process today. We say that we don't have time. We cannot afford for the land to be idle for a year. So what do? Well, before we get to the modification of the seeds, we use fertilizers. You see? Sir? We fertilize it to this limit, yeah? Another way, prior to fertilization, farmers would also rotate the land. So if you plant beans, then the next year you plant corn. If you plant a root, then the next year you plant a leaf thing, whatever. But the sabbatical year was important. Sabbatical year. The land was supposed to remain. There's a term I use also, fallow, F-A-L-L-O-W, yeah? Remained, let it be, and so on. Now, it will still produce crops. It will still produce crop. What is left over, yeah, will grow. Yeah, and you just go and you reap. If you're walking through the woods here, you may come upon a berry tree. Yeah? No one planted it per se, but you can eat the berries. They're nice, good, wonderful, yeah? So that's it. Now, what else do we? So now, let's work out what happens now in real terms for the nation. When is the beginning of the sabbatical year? It will be the end of the what? The end of the 6th year, right? So for 6 years, sow your fields, and for 6 years, prune your vineyards and gather your crops. But in the 7th year, the land is to have a Sabbath of rest. So, what you plant generates a harvest. But harvest time comes a good while after planting time. So generally speaking, if you're planting annuals, like wheat, you plant it in, well, you do have, say, winter wheat, you are going to reap that down in the fall, no? Some 6, 8, 10 months down the line, right? But we will just abbreviate everything to say that what you plant in year 5, you will reap that harvest when? In year 6. What you plant in year 6, you would reap that sometime in year 7. No?
Well, if it's a Sabbath year, you can't reap it in 7.
Well, it says here not to plant. You can gather your harvest. Yeah. That's because if you're going to starve if you don't. Yeah. But yeah. But let's look at it another way. Let's assume, therefore, that you can plant early in the year and reap late in the year.
But it says right here in verse 5, it says, what grows in its own cord of your harvest you shall not reap.
Right. So what you, yes, that's good. So what you will be reaping is not what grows of its own accord. It's what you planted. Now, after you have harvested what you planted, you can no longer do any more harvesting. Yeah? That's it. So you reap your crop. You bring home your crop. But so you're going to have a problem now. Well, it's not a problem. It's a very important. Sir? How much will you be growing? Right. Right. So this is the crunch now. This is the crunch. The land has a year off. But your stomach doesn't have a year off. You have to store up. But storing up, you can only store up what you have harvested. So if normally, for you therefore to store up for your current year plus the other year, you have to harvest twice as much as your normal harvest. Are you following me? You have to bring in twice as much because you will be going a year without planting. So this is where God comes in now. Sabbath is about faith in God. Are you with me? Sabbath is about trusting God. Sabbath is saying, yes, God has to do the God part. What is the God part? Providing twice as much or 3 times as much prior to or compared to normal times. Yeah? So we have to trust that God will do this. So for instance now, so in year 5, you have your normal harvest. In year 6, you really need 3 times regular harvest. Because you need to take you through year 7. But at the end of year 7, you don't have anything to reap. You have to plant. But what you plant will be reaped when? In year 8. So this is the God part. God has to multiply that harvest that will allow you now to be able to save up for the sabbatical year. Okay? So that requires, yes?
It seems like in reading it, like for that 7th year, whatever the ground produces, he's specifically telling you how you should disperse of it. Like
Yeah.
who gets it.
Yeah.
It seems like all the other years that you're producing, it seems like it could be barter. So
It belongs to you.
yeah, it belongs to you, but it's like
But in the 7th year,
in the 7th year, he says you, the family,
it's open season. It doesn't belong to you as a person. It belongs to the community in general.
But he specifically says you, your family, the people who live with you. So it's not everybody.
Well, look, if you read it a little further, you will see. Even the stranger, everyone there, it belongs. We're going to, there's another part of that. That's part 1 of that. Part 2 is a little bit more complex. So here is the thing with Israel and the Sabbath, the sabbatical year. Remember, we stated that it requires faith. You have to trust God. You have to trust that God is going to give you the abundant harvest to take you through the next 2 years. Now then, come year 7th. Well, let's look even before that. You do get the abundant harvest in year 6. And you say, wow, man, this is a windfall. So what am I going to do with this windfall? Well, I'm going to sell it. I have all of this money to invest. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make plans, and you make your plans. And comes year 7, what do? You just go ahead and plant as normal. You see, you leave God out of the plan. He says, wow, I got this. No, there's so much I can do with this now. Yeah? Why? Because I am not going to keep the sabbatical year. That's just bad planning, a bad use of resources. Are you with me? That's the human side of us, yes. How did they pay for it? And they'll persecute for your good guess. Good. Yeah. So why? So in suffering. Yeah. So that 70 sabbatical year, that sabbatical year belongs to God. You're not to do any work. The land is not to be worked. The land, who does the land belong to, by the way? The earth is the Lord. And we today have lost all sight of that. We have taken God out of the picture of planet Earth altogether. We say it's our land, or the government land. And you know, yeah. They tax you for it, yeah? So in other words, they have taken ownership, and there was we went through a period of about a good 100 years of conflict between the people and government. Of course, at that time it would be kings. The king owns everything, or the queen, yeah? To says, no, the land belongs to the people. And so you had all the agitations and wars and all of that. So that's what brought about the notion of commons. Do you have any commons on Long Island? A common area? Hear the common? That's an area that the people demanded to say that area belongs to the people. It has no individual ownership. Now you can regulate it. So in some places, you can go there and plant your crops. You get your little square or your little portion. Are you with me? And you can plant your vegetables and your whatever you want to plant, your flowers or whatever it is. There's no tax, there's nothing. It's your little piece of ground that you can use. But out of that agitation came the whole notion of common areas. So if you put up a building complex or a development is going up, there has to be common area. You need to have recreation parks. You need to have, are you with me? These areas for the people. And of course, if you notice, the areas gets more and more restricted. Yeah? We do well when you have for the state, like you'll have New York, what's it? The big park, yeah? Central Park. Yeah, you with me? But, but anyway, the idea there is that the planet Earth belongs to God. Okay? So what God did with the sabbatical year, he's saying, okay, you were stewards of that portion that you claim ownership for. Fine, nothing is wrong, wonderful. Work it, claim whatever comes off of it and all of that. But the 7th year is mine. So that's why, Cliff, he says, you can eat it. Whatever it grows, you and your family and your friends and neighbors and the strangers, everyone can utilize it. Yeah? But it's mine. Don't forget that it is mine. That's what God is saying. It is mine. So Israel violated the sabbatical year. They never kept it. 70 years. So 70 sabbatical years they ignored. So when God is going to punish them, he uses a king by the name of Nebuchadnezzar, who is going to take them into captivity. And the captivity is going to last 70 years. Yes? Yeah? No. It's 70 years. In other words, they will have to give back the year that they took from God. I'll put it another way. God is going to take back that year from them. So their captivity will be for 70 years. In that 70 year, the land has what? It's sabbatical rest. Yes. That's the weekly. That's your weekly sabbatical rest. Now, in your 7-day rest, in your 7-day Sabbath now, the rest is for whom? Who is to rest on the 7th day? The people. It's us. See? It's we are to rest. We need that spiritual recovery. So the Sabbath day was intended as a day for the individuals to draw close to God. Yeah? Yes, miss.
I just have a question about the Israelites and their movement.
Yes.
Weren't there more aspects to why they were?
Of course there was. It was adultery, not adultery, idolatry, and all of that. However, when God is giving his judgment, the sentence, what will be the sentence for your sins? There's a long litany of sins.
Now, where is that?
It's in your Bible.
I was like, show me where that is.
No, why don't you look it up for us? It's in, start with 2nd Chronicles. Hello. I have given you a clue. Yeah? So find it there. Anyway, so let's fast forward to the next aspect of Leviticus. The next aspect of Leviticus. The next aspect of Leviticus is in chapter 25. Isn't it? And this now is the year of Jubilee. Yeah. Well, yeah, so it's the same reading. We had said you were going to read from verse 1 to 17, but we're breaking up in 2. So we have the first part of the reading is 1 to 7. Someone else read for us now, 8 through to 17. Leviticus 25, 8 through 17. Loud and clear.
Count of 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the 7 Sabbaths of years amount to a period of 49 years, 7 times 7. Then have the trumpet sounded everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement. Sound the trumpet throughout your land. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all the inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each one of you is to return to his family property, and each is to his own clan. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. Do not sow and do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the untended vines. For it is a jubilee and is to be holy for you. Eat only what is taken directly from the field. In the year of jubilee, everyone is to return to his own property. If you sell land to one of your countrymen or buy any from him, do not take advantage of each other. You are to buy from your countryman on the basis of the number of years since the jubilee, and he is to sell to you on the basis of the number of years left for harvesting crops. When the years are many, you are to increase the price, and when the years are few, you are to decrease the price, because what he is really selling you is the number of crops. Do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. I am the Lord your God.
Very good. Thank you. So what do you understand about Jubilee? 50-year celebration, yes? But what happens in that year? Well, yes, but what is the Jubilee about? What's the meaning of Jubilee? Yes, but what's the meaning of the word itself? Happiness. Is it rejoicing? Yeah? So what is there to rejoice about come year 50? Well, that too, but you should always be doing that. Remember, you know. So there's something unique about year of Jubilee. So here's what happened. Let me say to you though. In the year of Jubilee, all debts are forgiven. Yeah? All your credit card debts go to zero. Your mortgage is paid off. Are you with me? You see? We go back to ground zero. We restart. Families get a restart. So notice what he says here you have to do. So you have the land. No, we are ahead of ourselves with understanding how the land was divided. Because we are still at Mount Sinai. Keep in mind the whole movement of what's happening here. What is happening here? God is establishing, what is God establishing with Israel? Yes, his nation, and specifically, yes, that's done. But so now we are at that point where he's establishing his religion. So we just finished the offerings and the tabernacle and all of that. So the religion is being established now. And now we have some sundry laws, which are also religious laws, because if you notice, it's a Sabbath, it's a takeoff of the Sabbath. So you had a weekly Sabbath, you have the annual Sabbath, and now you have the 50-year Sabbath, which is a year of Jubilee. Okay? Now, later on, over in Numbers and Deuteronomy, you'll get an expansion of that, more information on Jubilee and all of that. Are we together? But in establishing this now, he says, okay, when you come into the land, they are not yet in the land. At this point, Israel is still at Mount Sinai. Okay? We have spent 3 months at Mount Sinai with Israel. All of this that we have covered in the book of Leviticus took place at the foot of Mount Sinai.
We spent 3 months, but how many years were they there?
3 months.
They were there only 3 months.
They were there only 3 months. Remember, they were on their way to the promised land. They were on their way from, where were they moving from? From Egypt. They are traveling from Egypt to get to Palestine, to the promised land. The land that God has promised them, a land flowing with milk and honey. They are not there yet. So right now, they are in Mount Sinai. They are technically in the wilderness of Mount Sinai. Yeah? No. You have the nation is being established. Remember, 3 things required for your nation: people, law, and land. So at Mount Sinai, you have the people. They're all gathered there. They have been taken out of Egypt. The law is given them. Yes? That's the 10 Commandment covenant law. Yeah? When they leave Sinai, they will be resuming their journey now to the land. Okay? Now, this what we have read here about the land is to come. They haven't gotten the land yet, but they will get the land. When they get the land, which will be the work of Joshua, when we get into the book of Joshua, that's what Joshua does, is to settle them into the land. Now then, we can use an American situation here. Do you remember? You help me here, please, Molly. So the president, which president was that? That says you can go and get all the land you want, heading west? In the west. The westward expansion. Yes, thank you. Westward expansion. Yeah? James Monroe. Okay, so with the westward expansion, you have the date, and you have the place where you're leaving from, and you get there with your horse, with your buggy, with your foot, or whatever it is there, and you wait until the bugle blows. And when the bugle blows, put up, you take off. Are you with me? First come, first serve. And then you go and you mark out your piece of land. See? You go and mark out your piece of land. And some places where you go, you will have to fight for it because you do have some owners there. Okay? But the government has given it to you. So you mark out your square. Isn't that how they used to call it? A square of land was what? 600 acres? Oh, come on, folks. I'm a foreigner now. You know. But, yeah, I think it's 640 acres, yeah? But anyway, whatever it was. So that's how the West was won. You went and you got the land. That may have been a takeoff of what Joshua did with Palestine. So Israel crosses over the Jordan River. They are in the promised land. Now, what do we do? How do you break up the land? What's going to happen? So the land is going to be divided along tribal lines. You have 12 tribes, so the land is going to be divided up into 12. Yeah? Each tribe will get a section. Within the tribe, each family will get a section of that land that was given to the tribe. So every family received their 40 acres and a mule. Nobody laughed. Are you with me? Everyone received their land for their family, and that is the family's land. And it is to remain with the family. Yes? So that's what Jubilee is about. Because in the course of events, a family may use their land as security for a loan. See? Or the family may have to sell the land. Or the family may have to lease the land. Things happen. Okay? And the family becomes penniless. Okay? They are heavily indebted to whatever. Yeah? And so, hard times is their experience. But they do get a restart. When is that restart? Jubilee. In the year of Jubilee, all the lands go back to the original families. And all debts are written off. See? So that's what some folks were calling for when the economy collapsed. 10 years ago, 11 years ago, where they were saying to the government, do not bail out Wall Street. You are to bail out Main Street. Eh? Bail out the populace. Don't bail out the 1%ers. Well, the government went with bailing out the 1%ers. So the nation just continues the way it was. Yeah? So the rich continued to get richer, and the poor were not brought along with it, but the poor got what? So everyone acknowledges now that the gap, see the gap? The gap is growing. Part of the reason for the gap growing is because the populace didn't get a reset. Yeah? Yeah.
But this reset, things happen, people have to sell their land or
Yeah.
lease their land. So people are buying this land.
Yes.
For who it is.
Yeah.
But then when it gets reset,
Yeah.
what happens to those people that have purchased the land and all of a sudden goes back to the guy that he bought it from?
Yes. So now, so in the reading it says, now when you are selling the land, the land is priced based upon the year of Jubilee. How many years do you have left in the land? So if the time sell the land is the first year after Jubilee, because the owners, the new owners, will be able to use that land for 48 years. If you are selling the land 2 years before Jubilee, the price is very low. You with me? Because they only have 2 years to work the land. So that's how the price is valued. So the reading ends by saying, do not take advantage of the people. Read verse 17 there again for me, someone. Anyone, 17?
You shall not wrong one another, but you shall fear your God, for I am the Lord your God.
You shall not wrong one another. You are not to take advantage of each other. Yes? But you are to do what? Fear. Fear whom? Fear the Lord. Fear God.
What happens if the person sells to a relative?
It doesn't really matter. Well, if it is sold to a relative now, it depends now. You see, you cannot own 2 family lands. You see, each family is given their land. Yeah? And we are going to see that in the book of Numbers. That's the importance of the book of Numbers. Okay? Another name for Numbers could really be census. That's what Numbers is. The Numbers is a census. It's a national census, like our federal census that was done, what was it, 8 years ago or whatever it was, yeah? So the census is taken, and each tribe is noted, and each family is named and recorded. So you now have the Department of Records. You with me? Births and deaths. Yeah. So each family is recorded there, and that now will be the basis by which a family will be allocated its land. Yeah? So that is what, you can trade it, you can do whatever you wish with it, you want with it, but come year 50, it goes back to the descendants of that family. That's what we mean by the reset.
So would they ever do it outside of their people? No.
No, this is for Israel, the nation of Israel.
So that, yeah.
This is the nation of Israel. Yeah?
Water and just the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, because it doesn't sound like no kind of good deal that anybody else would get involved with, knowing that at a certain time you're just going to take it back from them.
Well, but we do that. We do that even today. I'm in the real estate business, and I do that. I lease you a property. You live in a house that you have not purchased. What have you done? What are you doing? Well, renting or leasing. Yeah? So you lease it for how long? For a year. Or you rent it for what? A year. Renewable. Yeah? At the end of the year, or 10 months before, in the year, month 10th, you indicate to the owner whether you will you'll continue living there, or you will vacate the premises, or the owner says, I will not renew your lease. And then you have leases for 5 years. And you have, for business, leases is for 50 years. And really big business, they say they'll want a lease for 99 years. Because what they are going to put into the property. Are you with me? That's sort of how you work this thing out. Says, okay, I'm going to do a development on this 200-acre site. The cost of the development will be, I'm going to put a factory there and employ 2,000 people, all of that. I need a lease for 99 years. Yeah, because I don't intend that after 50 years you tell me to pack up and go. Where am I to pack up and go? It's not like that. So you need that lease. So you have a 49-year lease or a 50-year lease.
People that they're buying, that they're giving their land to, they're still making crops and selling it or whatever. They're not just holding the land from the people that, giving
Right.
it or selling it to.
they're making a profit. And a common thing that occurs also is that the person buys the property from you and then turns around and leases it back to you. Are you with me? They just need to own the property, but they are not going to work the property. So you sell it to them and you say, hey, I'd still like to occupy the property. I will enter into a 5-year renewable lease or whatever terms that you can get into. Yeah? So yes, you're still working it, but Israel and Israel only now. Come year 50, it goes back to the family. So what that prevented was generational poverty. You understand what I mean by generational poverty? You see, the whole structure of our economic system, you take your, what's it saying? Put up yourself by your own bootstrings. Bootstraps. Yeah? Which is, it sounds good. The only problem is that we don't have no boots. It's difficult to do that. Are you with me? So look at another case. Our president is a case in point. His father gave him a little start in life. What was that start? $1 million. Yeah? Most of us, as I tell my children, the start I am giving you in life is sending you to school. So you better run with that. Yeah, that's it. That's the best I can do for you. Yeah, I give you a beautiful family environment to grow up into. Yeah, and then hey, you're on your own. Okay, but how different would life be if every family got a reasonable chunk of financial change to say, hey, go make yourself a woman. Or, you know what I'm saying to you? Yeah? So that happens with the wealthy. But with the majority of the populace, that's not going to be your experience. And so the challenge is how to break out of that glass ceiling of low income. How do you break from low income to middle income? And how do you break from middle income to upper income? I'm sorry? So you have to be careful how you use that. In fact, I think tonight in the course of this week, you will hear some discourse along that line on your television newscast, Fox and MSNBC and so on. Because, you see, economists, politicians, others use that statement to justify. Please, hold on. They use that statement to justify oppressing the poor. In other words, to say, hey, we need to keep you poor because the Bible says they will always be poor. You see what I'm saying to you? So, Jesus said, the poor will always be with you. But that doesn't mean we are not to work towards alleviating the circumstances of the poor, to lift your neighbor out of poverty. Yeah? That's being neighborly. That's being a good Samaritan. So the whole sabbatical jubilee, the whole system. Now, again, to what extent Israel have respected that is debatable. They really didn't respect it really well. But there are aspects of it that they did respect. And one aspect is don't take advantage of your neighbor. Fear God. You see, if you see how verse 17 puts it there, it's the fear of God. Remember God. Now, what happens with us in the nation in our present world is, as Romans 2:8 says, there is no fear of God in the hearts of the people. And when there is no fear of God, there is no boundaries that prevents the individual from being oppressive in whatever ways. So we slaughter and kill for, if there was fear of God, let me put it another way. If there was true fear of God, there would be no terrorists. You wouldn't have people going to cemeteries to desecrate the cemeteries of other people because you don't share their religion. And all the other kinds of ways that we find to be ugly toward our neighbor. Yes, miss?
This is a perfect segue for your scripture.
Go ahead.
Well, I can read the whole thing.
Well, we just need a verse that says 1 year for the 70.
But
Yeah.
you can start at 14 all the way to 21, but it is Second Chronicles 36.
Second Chronicles 36.
And it, the little small section, he writes, to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah until the land had enjoyed its Sabbath, all the days that it lay desolate, he kept Sabbath to fulfill 70 years.
Okay. Okay, but yes, so there's somewhere there it says 1 year for each. But anyway, but thank you there. So you have done fantastic. That's good. That's it. You have given clue number 2. So now others now can go dig a little further and I want to see that. Yes. Second Chronicles chapter 30. Second Chronicles 36.
I found 2021. Mike suggested he said, start at 14.
Okay. Yeah. But
I found 21.
yeah, the important thing to remember there is that the 70-year sentence was 1 year for each of the sabbatical years that they did not keep. Yeah? And there's a takeaway from that also now with, what is it the prophet Malachi says? Will a man rob God? Yes? Yet you rob me. So what happens when we rob God? God, but it's not just that he knows. In what way do we rob ourselves?
Because we take our own blessings. When we cheat.
Yeah, but in real ways, yes, so in tangible ways, what happens? There comes a point where God says, the money that you have in your retirement account is not yours. Are you with me? That money belongs to me. That's what God is saying. But if I allow you to keep it, you are going to use it for whom? For yourself. So he takes what is his. So how does he take it? How does he take it? That's the question you should ask. How does he take it? So you have economic collapse. Are you with me? The company that is regulating your business, there's fraud involved or whatever it is, but whatever it is that you lose all or a portion of that which you had. Yeah? So the opposite happens. You see, that's what, the opposite happens when we do the will of God, when we function fearing God and respecting God. Yeah? But it is not a one-way stream where, we do not maintain that faith, trust, and confidence in God and do what the Lord says. We hold back from the Lord and we still hold back and expect the Lord to continue what? Blessing us year after year, month after month, going on as if, hey, nothing is going on. We need to be aware of these little things. So that was Israel.
There's so many examples of characters in the Bible that serve the Lord to their fullest ability and still suffer. So I think we can be very careful suggesting that our service to the Lord is going to profit us here and now, as opposed to, not serving the Lord and we won't profit. There's so many examples that that's not
So right. So yeah, no, Job is not a good example for you, unfortunately. Bec- yeah, yeah, but look at the end. Go to the end of the book of Job. Go to the end of the book of Job, and it tells you that he ended up with what? 10 times as much.
But during his service, what you just said was, when we are in service and doing our best, we'll be blessed.
Hmm.
And when we're not, we won't.
Yeah, but
He was always in service for many, many, many years and wasn't blessed. Ultimately, he was.
yeah, well, that's the point. The point is this. Look, we don't know when God is.
Ultimately, yes.
Yeah.
I thought the way you were saying it is, we're going to be blessed as we're serving.
No, 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 no. And the other point that you were really making is that that's not the only reason for suffering.
Right.
Human suffering is a very complex matter in the system of God. Yeah? So we are just talking of one aspect of it that we tend, well, in many instances we just weren't aware of it. The other instance is that we just ignore it willfully. You know, it's a habit that is easy to overcome us, robbing God. It's an easy habit to be addicted to. Are you with me? Because we get comfortable with it, and that becomes our norm. See, we go through life. One of my best friends up in Athens, Alabama, was an elder in the church there, and one of the wealthiest men in town. And he said, Brother Lance, I just wish I could give. I just don't have the heart to give. He gave $2 as his contribution each week. And he did that for, as far as I know, all of his life. He said, I know I shouldn't. I just wish I could. I just can't. And but it's a habit that we get into. We get into this rut, and we're thinking of, I have to think of, like I would say, I have to think of my wife, okay? And I have a responsibility to my wife. Then your wife comes, and then children. I have a responsibility now to my wife and to my children. The children grow up. And then they have children. So now it's my wife, my children, and my grandchildren. So at no point in the whole equation there am I really thinking of God as I ought to. Not saying that I don't. Are you with me? But I'm just simply saying that we get into a rut. And several little things that we do. And I speak of myself in this way, because I had to learn. Yeah? I had to learn looking at even how to read my paycheck. I read my paycheck two ways. One way I read in my paycheck is when I was applying for another job. And they ask, what was your salary? When they asked me that question, my salary was the gross. Are you with me? Another way of reading my paycheck was come Friday or Saturday when I'm thinking about my contribution for Sunday morning. When I'm reading my paycheck at that time, my salary is the what? Is the net. Yeah? And then you go further. Well, what part of that should I give the Lord? Well, these are my bills. And I look at my bills first and take that out. And then, based upon the balance, I am very generous with my 10%. Or 15%. Or 20%. Until Brother Kidu sent me a letter and says, Brother Watson, you need to increase your giving. I said, what are you talking about? And life is so hard. Are you with me? And then I took a recap. I took a reset. And I said, what he's saying is true. Suppose I did things the opposite way. Yeah? So that is part of the Sabbath keeping lesson. Let me close with the 7-day Sabbath. So here it is that on the seventh day, Israel was not allowed to work. So if you're a business, you can tell Jewish business in any community you go, because They don't open when? On Saturdays. Saturday is the biggest, well, maybe Sunday now, but weekend is the biggest what? Shopping days. They don't open. And they will tell you they don't lose any business. Why? Because God says that he will double your harvest. Are you with me? For Friday, your harvest will be doubled to take care of what you would harvest on Saturday. But I tell you another way that it struck me. It's in college. So in my class, in this course I'm doing, we have about 4 or 5 Jewish students. And you know, exam time is coming around, and everyone is burning the midnight oil. And Saturday, we says, well, let's have a group study. They say they can't. Why? They have to, actually it started Friday night, they have to respect the Sabbath. And studying is considered work. Are you with me? Studying is considered work. So we got into a conversation saying, okay, every week you lose 1 day's study compared to the other students. You follow? Including myself, compared to me. Yeah? So how do you manage? They says, okay, check our grades. Are you with me? That 1 day is not, that they lose is not reflected in their grades. In fact, they have better grades than the majority of people in the class. Well, that's one way of looking at it. I'm also thinking that the Lord make it easier for them to retain whatever it is that they study, because they are maintaining this whole matter of the Sabbath that he required of them in their religion. Yeah? And again, if you look at it in another material way, you know, the Jews are persecuted throughout the centuries. What is the main reason for their persecution? Huh? No, what's the main? Not God persecuted, but nations persecute them. They were always saying that they do what? They control what? They control the money. They control the banks. They control the, are you with me? Is it true? I don't think so, but it may be some degree or the other. But the point is that they have really prospered through the centuries against the odds. Yeah? So much so, one scholar says, if you want to know that, you want proof that God exists, the Jewish nation is your proof. Yeah? Probably the most persecuted nation through the centuries. And they're still flourishing. Yeah, I'm talking here. Do you think I'm talking in heaven? No, yeah. But the point is, you know, so, but the point we're making is simply this, that the way Leviticus goes on and ends, what it brings us there, which we don't really pay attention to, certainly within our faith community. I don't know what they do. I don't know. I hear little things and I hear other things. I hear it's not across the board and, you know, whatever. You know, sort of, if you are my friend, yes. If you're not my friend, no, sort of thing. But I don't know. You know, what I do know that generally, they are not supposed to charge interest on the loans that they give to, and again, I'm not sure if it's across the board, but they don't charge interest on loans given to other persons of their faith.
Yeah, but there's like the Muslims and then there's the Muslims. There's 2 different religions.
Let's not go into that tonight. That's a different that's a different that's a different kettle of fish there. Our takeaway, the takeaway I wanted us to realize here is the part, the activity of God in our present day lives. Is living in the presence of God. That's what I want us to take away. You know, Jesus says, lo, I am what? With you. I am with you. I'm right there beside you every step of every moment of every day. And that's how we are living. We are living with God in the presence of God, and we should not lose sight of it. And when God is on our side, that is all that matters. So Paul says he was persecuted hardly, harshly, you know, all things work together for good to those who what? Love the Lord. You are called according to his purpose, and you love the Lord. Yeah? That's faith. Faith is living that out. By sight is when we try to work out what is going to happen. Yeah? Which we don't have the answers for. And we'll just pressure ourselves, worrying ourselves unnecessarily to death when we should be experiencing life and looking at the clock so that John can tell me it's 8:15, time to shut down and for us to go, which is, we don't need any help from anyone else, okay? Thank you. Anyway, thank you very much. So, you have your handout? Did you get your handout on Numbers? So, your homework is to read the first, is it the first 4 chapters of Numbers? Certainly, yes, certainly chapters 1 to 3. Brother John, can you make a couple copies of that for us? I think we need about 10 copies. Yeah, boy, yeah? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Very good, very good, very good question. Right. Yes, so both, yes and no. Yes and no. So, we are obligated, by obligated, this is what the Lord commands. He doesn't tell us how much to give. He gives us a lot of indicators. You know, you hear it, the brothers say it each week. God loves a cheerful giver, and, you know, give until, you know. We know the minimum that is acceptable is 10%. And why we call that the 10% the minimum? Because he has never designated less than 10%, okay? No. So that's what we give to the congregation. No. When we go outside now and we help an individual or an organization, that must be on top of what we have purpose for the congregation. The congregation is a family. So the family has its economic responsibilities, and we are putting our part. That's what we're doing towards our family, our church family. And we must always be conscious of that. So therefore, when I travel, I'm conscious of my family. When I travel to Nigeria, I don't say, okay, man, I'm so happy that I'm in Nigeria. No, I don't have to pay the utility bills in Boston or in Patchogue. Paulette is there, but I'm not there, so, you know, she better find her way out. Yeah? No. Would you recommend that? No. If I have expenses in Nigeria, those expenses will have to be on top of my home expenses. I can't neglect my home expenses because I am taking care of expenses elsewhere. And so, part of the responsibility of membership of a congregation is your responsibility to that congregation, to that family. So, when I visit a congregation in Connecticut and the collection plate comes around, what I put in that plate is not for the congregation in Patchogue. And you may say, but I'm giving it to the Lord. And that you are. But you have a responsibility to your congregation in Patchogue. Yeah? So that what you give to other congregations, other institutions, must be on top of your first responsibility, which is toward your family. So, chew on that a little bit. My little sister is not here tonight. She would say, let that marinate. Yeah? Okay, so all of these things, beautiful discussion, all of this is really about drawing closer to God. That's Leviticus, you know. How to get in close communion and fellowship with God and to maintain that fellowship. And God says to us, this is how you are to do it. Choose this way. Go about your life in this way. All right? And for Israel, he's going to break it down to them in the fine points. We are to learn from Israel. Yeah? These things are written for our learning. The principles apply to us. So, Leviticus was about offerings. The sin offering is the one that is we know the most about, but there are others. We focus and close our sessions each night on the matter of the sin offering because we acknowledge to God we are sinners. We have sinned against God. John says, if you say you have not sinned, you deceive yourself and the truth is not in us. But if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us of all unrighteousness. So we thank God for this opportunity, an occasion that we have each Wednesday night. We come together. We get a spiritual uplift. Yes, it's wonderful. But now, as we are departing, we'd like to encourage you, think about where you are with God. And we want everyone to leave here in a right relationship. So for that matter, we have our prayer requests. If you need to rededicate your life to Christ, now is the time to do that. Or let me say, now is a good time. John, there's a hand up at the back there. Now is a good time. And if you have special needs that you would like us to pray about, that's what we are here for. So let me come around with these prayer stuff. And we will have our closing prayer after we have done our little stuff here. Here are our pens, brother. Yeah? Yeah, this keeps. So for next week, Lord willing, hey, brother, you did the wrong one. This is the wrong handout. Yes, sir. It should be number 17 that says numbers.
That says numbers.
This, where is it? No.
That's not the one I did.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
You did the wrong one.
Okay, thank you, my friend. No problem.
It's upside down.
Okay. So the book of Numbers, your assignment for next week, please, is to read through chapter 1 and go as far as you can. Ideally to the end of chapter 4. Yeah? First 4 chapters. That's your homework for next week. Numbers chapters 1 to 4. And then as you look on your handout, the numbers will make a little bit more sense to you. Why are those numbers? Psst. Pay attention. Okay. Brother Adrian, would you like to lead us in our closing prayer? You good? I'm sorry, brother. Every time. Every time. Brother Derek. Yeah. Well, you know, some of our times have changed, by the way. Just so let me let you be aware of where we are in our postmodern age, okay? I do a wedding, and instead of the, the husband, instead of the bride taking the husband's name, the husband takes the bride's name. I'm telling you. So hold on. We say Mr. and Mrs. Lancelot Watson. Have you ever heard that say that? Where we use the husband's name for the wife. That's how it was. So we just bringing you forward, okay? So and just, in our present age, man, I'm telling you, it's different. Yes, dear. After deceased, you can get your maiden name back. Well, I tell my wife, she can get her maiden name back when I'm deceased, yes. Because it is still what? Till death do we part. Till death do you part. So, anyway, prayer request. Any prayer requests over this side here? Do you need a prayer request? In my current class, at the beginning of the class, the professor sends an email around, and she says, "What gender do you prefer to be referred as?" Is that how you do it? Yeah. How is it worded? Do you do that at your? We do that? Yeah. No. Yeah. But it's not what you identify. It's not what you identify. It's how you prefer to be called, to be addressed. So for instance, I could choose to say I prefer to be called Mrs. Watson. Hello. If I prefer, that's how do you prefer? And what gender should we use in referring to you? Like if we exchange papers, we don't. You have to be careful about the pronoun. No, not what gender. What pronoun? What pronoun? What pronoun? So I'm just thinking that next week I may be a her. That doesn't. I'll tell her that my faith community won't let that fly. Mr. Adrian. Mr. Adrian. Yeah? Or Brother Adrian. Yeah, that's right.